Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're playing Paper Mario on your Nintendo Switch. You just beat the Big Lantern Ghost and got Watt, a new partner. After making your way through a few rooms, you get to the toy box's final boss, General Guy. As it turns out, this fight is a bit much, and you get a game over. Well, that's not too bad. You just saved, so... Oh. And now your save file has lost hours of progress? Or if you're really unlucky, it's gone entirely? What just happened? Well, I'm Jaycog, and I've been doing a lot of research about this the last few weeks, and I've got some answers for you. If you search on Twitter or the Paper Mario subreddit, you'll come across many examples of people claiming to get crashes when they game over, and for most of them, their save file is either an old one from hours ago or just gone entirely. Most of these people say that they died to General Guy, but there are also some people who claim it happened against Lava Piranha, Crystal King, Bowser, and even a few people who got it from normal battles. So what gives? Well, as a Paper Mario speedrunner myself, I decided to try and figure that out, and I did just that, so I'll skip straight to the chase. Having Watt as your partner whenever you get a game over on the US version of Paper Mario on Nintendo Switch Online will crash 100% of the time, and as far as I can tell, those are the only factors. To prove this, let's take a look at some of the testing I did on my Twitch stream. That's twitch.tv/Jaycog, by the way, which you should definitely follow for some Paper Mario speedrunning content. We're going to try every partner besides Watt first. Alright, so Goombario. No crash. Pause menu stays laggy, though. That only happens on English. Alright, Strike Cooper. Going to be a new world record for most game overs in a shorter time period. No crash. Bombette is the active partner. Yeah, Mario's feet are not feeling too good right now. Lemon. I mean, it is better. No crash. We're getting a game over with Watt. None of the other partners got a crash on game over from this. The only thing that's been different with all of these is my active partner. So, what happens when you get a game over with Watt as your active partner? Good video game. Very well done. If you're hearing this and you want to try it out yourself to confirm, hold up just 1 second. We still haven't gotten to the reverted save progress issue, and we will, but first I want to dive a little deeper into why Watt is causing the game to crash. To do that, we're going to need a proper setup. With a homebrewed Switch, we can dump the associated game files and look at exactly what Paper Mario specific hacks the Switch developers applied. And more than that, we can actually edit those hacks ourselves and see how the game behaves in response. There's one main file we're going to want to look at. It's a Lua file where the majority of these hacks are located. And I know it's early in the video, but right here is actually where I want to go on a quick tangent. You've probably heard of or experienced some other less game-breaking issues this port has. Lag in the pause menu? Caused by this code right here. Lava Piranha lag? It's pretty clear that it's caused by this hack. Game over lag? We're going to talk about that one in depth, but that's caused by this code right here. There are a few theories on why the Switch developers decided to add this lag in the first place, but none of them are very satisfying. It certainly doesn't seem to be for performance, and if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll see that you can remove each and every one of these Lua hacks, and the game seems to run perfectly fine without them. Better, actually. The why doesn't matter too much for our purposes, though. What we do know is that for some reason, the Switch developers intentionally added lag in these situations. There's also something else worth mentioning here. If I run Paper Mario while Switch Homebrew is active, which I need to do to run my edited hacks, then game over when Watt is my active partner, I no longer get a crash. Instead, the screen flashes black before returning to normal. I don't know why this happens, but I've done a ton of testing, and as far as I can tell, the black flash is 100% correlated with whether or not the game would crash after a game over without Homebrew. For the rest of this video, I'm going to assume that they're equivalent, but there is admittedly a super tiny chance that somehow that's not true, so just keep that in the back of your head. So for the first hack of our own, let's get a little creative. I alluded to it earlier, but this crash is exclusive to the US version of Paper Mario. If you game over with Watt on the Japanese version, everything behaves just fine. Let's start by commenting out the contents of this hookfunc before inst function in the Japanese Lua file and try things out. I'll explain why I chose this specifically in just a minute, but first, let's see what happens. Did you see that black flash? That doesn't normally happen on this version. That means that something this function does prevents the Japanese version from crashing. But what does it do exactly? I don't want to get too far down into the weeds, but basically the emulator waits for a particular line of code to run that gets called when loading the title screen, and then it calls the function n64rsp broke1 task with 2 arguments. We don't know exactly what this function does, and we don't know what the second argument refers to, but the first argument is a RAM address. If Watt is your partner during a game over when this function runs, that address points to a display list, which, if you're unfamiliar, is related to graphics. This all seems to track, since while we don't know what N64 RSP broke1 task does exactly, RSP likely refers to the N64's reality signal processor, which, among many other things, is used for decoding display lists. Oh yeah, did I mention that the display list it points to is for the electricity effect surrounding Watt? This all kind of makes sense, but you might be wondering what Watt has to do with the game over screen in the first place. Isn't your partner gone by that point? All you can see is Mario, a spotlight, and the words "Game Over." To answer that, we're going to introduce the Paper Mario Practice ROM. This is a ROM hack of Paper Mario that's designed to help with speedrunning, glitch hunting, and general game research. It gives us menus that let us change Mario's stats, warp around to anywhere in the game, and even view and edit memory directly, plus much more. If you're interested in its capabilities in more detail, I have a video about the 1.0 release that I'll link in the description down below. Now with a homebrewed Switch, it's possible to run the practice ROM instead of the normal game. One of the newer features in development as of this recording is a FreeCam that lets us move the in-game camera around however we want. So what happens if we look 1,000 units below what you normally see on the game over screen? It's Watt. This may seem strange, but the original Paper Mario developers stored things in this way all over, so it's actually not as surprising as it may seem. Also, as it turns out, Watt is the only partner that produces a graphics effect when idle. You know, that electricity I mentioned earlier. What happens if we delete the effect though? Well, in that same Twitch stream from earlier, I tried that out. But yeah, so right now I'm gonna get a game over and the screen will flash black. If I wasn't booted into Homebrew, that would be a game crash, as far as I can tell. Black flash. And now I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm gonna do that memory thing that I just did. All right, so that's an array of effects that are an array of pointers to effects that are loaded. All right, so kill me. Okay, and now there are no effects loaded, whereas there normally would be one for Watt. No black flash. So having Watt as your partner when you game over causes a crash on US. If we delete the reference to Watt's electricity effect, that crash is prevented. The Nintendo Switch developers appear to have implemented a fix for this on the Japanese version, so it does look like they knew this was an issue. But if that's the case, why isn't it fixed on US? In fact, if we look at the US Lua file, it turns out the equivalent fix is right there. This is where things get a little messy, and I'm hesitant to say anything for sure, but there are multiple ways to get this fix to work on US. For instance, we can comment out this section where flag 0, which is referring to a game state variable, equals 21. This is the code that causes the game over lag, so it makes sense that if the induced lag and Watt's effect don't play nicely together, removing the lag would fix things. But there's an equivalent hack for the Japanese version, and it works just fine. However, removing the block of code where flag 0 equals 23 also fixes it, and there is no equivalent for this one on JP. Better yet, if I add this check to the Japanese Lua file, then that version starts crashing. I honestly don't know what exactly makes this happen, since the condition is only met for one frame near the beginning of a game over, but it's definitely related in some way. So to recap, the Switch developers wanted to cause lag on the game over screen for a reason that is unknown to us. When they made a Lua hack to make this happen, they realized that it caused a crash when Watt was your active partner, so they implemented a fix for that scenario. However, at some point, they broke that fix on the US version for one reason or another and didn't catch it. Honestly, this wouldn't be all that bad on its own. I mean, it's super dumb, don't get me wrong, but a crash when you just got a game over shouldn't cost any more time than it takes to boot the Switch app back up. What makes this unacceptable is the fact that when it happens, it gets rid of hours of people's progress. All of it for some people. It's actually very easy to explain why this happens, but first we need to understand how saving in the Switch Online app works. I'm going to use an example, and I'll be fast forwarding through a lot of it just to speed things up a bit. On this file, I load in just outside of Toad Town next to Forever Forest. I make my way to the save block just outside the Toad Town Toad House and save my game. From here, I make my way to Pleasant Path and get first struck and die with Watt as my partner. As we'd expect, this causes a crash. But look what happens when I try to load the game back up and load my save file. I'm right back where I was when I started this example. Next, let's try this again from the same starting point, but this time after I save, I'm going to close the Switch Online app entirely. After opening everything back up, I do everything else the same. I die, I get a crash. But this time, when I open the app back up, my save file is there. What's happening here is the Switch Online app doesn't actually flush your save data to permanent storage until the app itself is shut down. As baffling as this is, it doesn't normally cause any problems. The app always goes through a proper shutdown process at some point, including when you shut off the Switch entirely. The one exception to this seems to be when it crashes. Now this isn't specific to Paper Mario. This will happen for any N64 title that you can get to crash the app. For instance, Ocarina of Time speedrunners encountered the same issue when they were messing around with glitches when Switch Online first came out. The difference here is that we now have a crash that is extremely easy to have happen to any player, and because the Switch operating system encourages you to keep the app open as long as you don't want to play anything else, save files are rarely, if ever, flushed to permanent storage. It explains why people are losing such massive amounts of progress. So where do we go from here? Well, hopefully Nintendo fixes the issue. I feel like I provided more than enough information for them to act on, and this definitely warrants an immediate fix. People are paying a premium price on top of the regular Switch Online subscription for a product that is simply broken. In the meantime though, and I do hope it's just the meantime, there are some precautions you can take. For one thing, you can regularly close the Switch Online app to make sure your save data, actually saves. If you do get a game over with Watt out and realize what's about to happen, you can also just close the app right then and there. You'd be going back to your last save anyway under normal circumstances, so you don't really lose anything by doing that. Finally, you can take advantage of save states, or as Nintendo calls them, suspend points. For some reason, those do get permanently saved right away and survive crashes. I mean, it sucks that we have to do any of this, but at least there are some options. I said earlier that I'd end the video with a clip of how this game runs if I comment out all the Lua hacks, so I'll do that in just a second. Before that though, I want to give a few shoutouts. First of all, there's Mr. Cheese and Rain. They were both super helpful with figuring this stuff out, especially the bit about what that hook func before inst function was doing. Then there's Andrew, who implemented the free cam in the practice ROM that let us look at Watt on the game over screen. And lastly, there's Fig, who pretty much walked me through everything I needed to know about extracting and replacing Switch Online files with Homebrew. And finally, I'd really appreciate it if you subbed to the channel. My uploads have been a bit sparse lately, but I have some plans for Paper Mario videos in the works right now. For instance, one of my next videos is about how gravity works in this game, and it's way more complicated than it needs to be. The first two derivatives of position are velocity and acceleration, but do you know what you call the next two? Jerk and snap, and those values matter here. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'll see you next time. But in the meantime, let's enjoy what could have been.